Hi, my name is Rochelle, and you're listening or watching to BoxBox F1 Pod. Today we are debriefing the Monaco Grand Prix, which was fabulous. To get in the spirit, I put on my best linen, but instead of looking like I own a yacht in Monaco, I think I just kind of look vaguely Shakespearean. But anyway, the Grand Prix was amazing. It was all like, woo, at the beginning, and then it was kind of meh, and then it rained, and then it was like, woo, again, and then it was over. And that's it. That's your recap. Bye! Just kidding. I did not do a prep episode this week because I was worried that I would have to talk about the curse of the Monegasque prince, and by talking about it, I would jinx it and make it worse. So I decided to opt out of adding to the already complex issues going on there. Turns out it didn't make a difference. It still happened. The curse struck again, but we will get into that and everything else that happened on track. But first, it's time for the digital warm-up. Lap 1, off the grid. So this was a big week in that region, I guess, because it was the Cannes Film Festival. And a lot of our F1 drivers made an appearance. Lewis was seen at the Dua Lipa and Donatella Versace show in Cannes, and he was seen talking to them, taking pictures of them. Classic celeb Lewis. Pierre and his girlfriend Kiki, I think her name is Kiki, don't come at me if it's not, went to Cannes as well and looked beautiful and very hot and like not real human beings because they were so beautiful. She wore this dress that was like this long black dress that had like a rope tying it all the way down. And like just my only question was how logistically that dress works. Does it come tied? Do they have to like put the rope in after she puts on the dress? How does it work? Anyway, she looked hot. Pierre and her looked amazing together. And also Esteban made an appearance. He took his mom. It was so cute. Cute Esteban strikes again. He's just so bizarrely wholesome. It just keeps sneaking up on you and you forget, and then it's there again. He does something cute. Anyway, so off track and online, I guess, all the stuff that was happening on the internet. So Charles is rumored to have a new girlfriend named Alex, who has been pictured around the track, around Monaco. They were seen at an after party together, arriving together. So I guess it's less of a rumor and more that they're together. She looked insane at the Grand Prix. She was, but also like low-key was her like wedding reception or something. It was like a very long white dress and like little white heels and a little purse. She looked beautiful, but also she low-key looks exactly like Charlotte, his ex-girlfriend. But I think only in the sense that they're both cute. They're both cute with brown hair and from Monaco. I think she's also like a, what's the word? Socialite type thing from like one of those families. Anyway, they look very pretty together. I think she's really young. I think she's like 17. That could be a bold-faced lie, but she is youthful. But what was funny about her was that people were like tweeting about it, not always with photos, and they're like, Alex seen supporting Charles, Alex seen doing this, Alex seen leaving the paddock, and all the comments are like, Albin? Which would be funny. Anyway, speaking of Albin, he shared a photo of him at the gym in Monaco prepping for the weekend, and it had a bunch of other drivers there. The caption was, there's already traffic in Monaco. Oh, good one. Good one, Alex. But Carlos was there, Nick DeVries was there, and George Russell were also all working out the same gym. There was a funny like snap of like, he caught Carlos, like, I think it was supposed to be doing like a chin lift. Is that what that's called? Where you pull up. It was a pull up, shows how much I know, with weights, I think. But like he caught him just like hanging there. So he's just like hanging off the pole. Also I'm like convinced that George found his way over to Nick DeVries at one point during that gym session to get some pointers on abs, because Nick is ripped. He has like 25 abs, and that's George's dream. So I guarantee he tried to get some tips. Anyway, speaking also of Alex, during the break, he also participated in a charity sim race, and I think Max did too. Lando might have as well. I don't know if it was all the same race, but they all did some sort of charity sim situation for Imola, which was really nice. I also wanted to note that Valtteri was Valtteriing so hard during this time off. He said that he was so amped up and ready to like race in Imola that he just needed to race that weekend and like couldn't function if he did not like release all of that energy, I guess. So he just like entered himself into a cycling race in Scotland that his girlfriend was participating in and outperformed a 2-time gold medal cyclist. Just Valtteri stuff. Just casual Valtteri stuff. And he told this story at the press conference, and it was low-key annoying because everyone was talking while he was telling this story. Like, all the other drivers were talking amongst themselves, which normally I find really cute. But I really want someone to go like, way to go, Valtteri. That's awesome. You're, like, cool. But everyone just ignored him, and he's just sitting there, like, smiling, like, yeah, I biked. Yeah, I beat an Olympic champion. Anyway. Another thing that happened during the break is not related to any of the current drivers, but I will continue giving Daniel updates until the day I take my last breath. So, oh well. So Daniel released a full-on ad for his latest Enchante merch, and it starred Kristen Bell, which honestly, finally he's putting his connection to Dax Shepard to good use. Dax Shepard to good use. It was basically a short film called Smell the Roses, and it was Kristen Bell, and she like walks into this French like giant cafe thing wearing like this blazer and like all with a ponytail, all professional, and she's on the phone because apparently she's lost her luggage at the airport. And then on the other one, she's also has a friend crying to her because her boyfriend cheated on her, or dumped her, or whatever, and she's like upset, and she's like going back and forth between these two calls. And as she sits down at her table, another Kristen Bell sits down across from her wearing like Enchante like a sweatshirt and the sweatpants. And she just like stares at her and like smiles. Kristen is like confused and is like, am I going insane? Because this Kristen Bell, then she starts seeing her around the room, like sitting at a different table, just like staring at her and smiling at her the whole time. And she's like, this is insane. Then a bunch of peaches fall down the stairs. She's like, I got to go. So she like picks up her keys, but the keys turn into rose petals. And then she's like, fuck. And then suddenly it looks like she's about to gag, but she actually just pulls a full rose out of her mouth. And then she smiles, sits back down, and the shot like was on her face, and it zooms out and she's wearing an Enchante sweater. And she orders a coffee. And then gets a phone call back from the airport saying that she can come pick up her luggage. And she's like, keep the bag. And then hangs up. And the coffee is brought to her by Daniel Ricciardo, a server. And he goes, Enchante. And she just like looks around and smiles. And the screen cuts to black. And it says, smell the roses. And then Enchante. Very artsy movie. Weird. Just kind of random, the whole thing, but cute. I love that Daniel has the time to pursue these endeavors to like make an entire short film about his merch line. I think it's great. It was a bit heavy on the meaning, I guess. It was very artsy. This director went ham, but it was really fun. And also I love the behind the scenes shots that Daniel's girlfriend Heidi posted of him being like all nervous to perform when he had like one line to Kristen Bell. That was cute. And I love that Kristen Bell did it. I bet she did it for free, like as a favor. It was very cute. Okay, so lap 2, the Leclercs. Obviously, Monaco Grand Prix, aka the Leclerc Grand Prix. Everything was all about Charles. So Charles had a football game, and I'm not sure if it was hosted by him, but he was the captain of one of the teams. And it was a World Stars football match that takes place every year before the Monaco Grand Prix. Features F1 drivers as well as like other celebrities and athletes. And so Charles was the captain of one team, and Pierre and Carlos played with him on his team. And the memes that came from this charity match are hilarious. First, Carlos like tried to shoot a goal, but then like hung from the goal post. It was like a like a slam dunk in basketball. That's how you do a slam dunk, by the way. Anyway, and then he just hung there, and I guess he fell, and his thigh got hurt. I don't know if those two were related. I just assumed they were, but perhaps they weren't. And so then he was like injured. And he was seen like getting his leg taped up, and everyone's like, he can't race this weekend. But he was like, I'm fine, guys. But I really want to know what he did to his thigh that required so much tape and was fine like 3 days later. Like, what sort of injury could that possibly be? Unless he's faking being okay. A la Lance. These drivers, like athletes, are actually insane. Let your body heal. But also incredible because they can continue without letting their body heal. And that's amazing. Anyway, got distracted. There was also a moment where apparently Pierre tackled Charles and neither of them realized that it was the other person and that they're on the same team. So there's like a clip of them tackling each other. And then there's also a hilarious clip of like Charles like head planting into the ground in the middle of the game. And he reshared that screen grab on his story, and he captioned it, I've got a natural talent at football that very few have. I love when they are so self-deprecating. I love all of it. They should play football more often. We should like just make them do all sorts of activities and just laugh at them. Like, they're so bad at... I don't remember specifically, but last week or 2 weeks ago, there was, like, a clip of Daniel going around saying none of the athletes, like, know how to play other sports. I think it was Daniel. And it was at the same time as like, Max was trying to do some sort of activity and failing miserably, like, in the background. And it was so funny, and it's so relatable to this football match. Like, they should be so coordinated and athletic, and yet... here we are. Okay, so also Charles hosted a private party event thing that the guest list included his entire family, like all of them, Fred Vasseur and Carlos, and also the Prince of Monaco. So I guess it was like a Leclerc Ferrari Monaco situation. Everything that Charles is. Also, this is not related to this party, but it was Fred's birthday on Sunday, the day of the race. Hope his day went swell. It's a pretty bad birthday. But anyways, back to the party. I want to mention that everyone's like dressed nice. Like, you know, like casual, but put together nice. Like Charles is wearing a gray t-shirt and a blazer, which is a different story. Carlos is wearing a nice like jeans and like a really nice sweater. The mom is dressed like casual but very put together. So is Lorenzo. Fred is wearing a dress-up button-up shirt, and the prince is wearing a button-up shirt and a blazer, but no tie. So this is casual. Side note, they look related. They have the same type of baldness and like weird shape head. No offense to Prince Albert. No offense to Fred either, but more specifically to Prince Albert. But anyway, so they're all dressed up, right? But Arthur Leclerc showed up in his Ferrari like fit. He's wearing like the Ferrari red polo and like khaki pants, and looks like he just like works at Target or something, and showed up to this party. Like, did he think it was a marketing event for Ferrari? Like, why is he wearing that? Anyway, speaking of Arthur, I realized that this is Arthur's first Monaco Grand Prix, which actually makes a lot of sense because there was so much content coming out with Arthur and Charles in Monaco, and I was like, why is this different than all other years? But it's because he's racing in Monaco for the first time. So they like did this random photo shoot last week where they're like on the track in Monaco, and like they're sitting on the stairs next to the garage, and there's like a random Ferrari in the garage, and then it drives off, and like Charles captioned it, when is the pit lane open? But like the photo shoot is cute and all, but like it seems like a weird direction. Like, who was directing this photo shoot? Were they just sitting at home, or like, you know what, we should go to the paddock and take some pictures? Continuing the theme of random photo shoots, I thought it was random. Turns out it's not random, and now I feel bad for thinking it was random to begin with, but not my fault, it wasn't labeled. So the entire family, Lorenzo, Arthur, and Charles and their mom, were on a boat together, and they were taking family pictures, but also like there was this helmet in between all of them, and there was no description of what this helmet was. And then there was like solo shots of Charles and Arthur, and then there's one shot of like Arthur with the helmet on and Charles just looking at him. And I was so confused. I was like, what, who is doing these photo shoots? And then I realized that it was actually very wholesome and very sweet sentiment behind the whole thing. Because it's their father's helmet. And both Arthur and Charles like replicated the design on their own helmets in the same colors in honor of him. And it was actually very, very sweet. But with no context, which there was none until later. I was like, why are they taking like pictures with helmets on a boat? Also, going back to Arthur not knowing how to dress for things, they're all on this boat in jeans, which seems like a lot of denim on a boat. Like, I don't know if denim actually belongs so much on a boat. But that was better than Arthur, who just showed up in sweats and a t-shirt. Everyone else looks so nice, like they just walked out of a Gap ad or like a Villa ad in Europe, and he's there and like he rolled out of bed, which I kind of love. Anyways, they also did some media together separately where they interviewed each other, and in one of these interviews, Arthur asked Charles why he wears his red quali pants. And that was the moment it hit me that they are red quali pants. He only wears them on Saturdays. I didn't realize there was a pattern to him wearing these horrible pants. But there is. And so Arthur asked Charles why he always wears the red quali pants. And Charles was like, well, it started out as an accident and it became such a thing online or wherever that I just kept doing it. And now I never go a Saturday without my essential red quali pants. And I would just like to throw into the mix, possibly, for Charles to consider mixing things up. Could the red pants be the issue? Have you considered not wearing red to toe? Head to toe red. That rhymes anyway, but yeah. That could solve some things. I don't know. It's worth a shot. Speaking quickly about Arthur's race weekend, though, since I won't be talking about it later. This is so tragic. But if I laugh, it's out of horror, not because I think it's funny, for the record. So not only did Arthur crash out in qualifying and was forced to start from the back, he had a brake issue or he had a car issue and had to retire in lap 9. The Monegasque curse is not limited to one prince. It goes for both of them. And I don't think Arthur saw it coming. He was probably like, curse? What curse? And then bam. I don't know who the Leclercs pissed off in a previous life, but they are powerful and evil. They need to make amends. And I'll obviously go into more depth about Charles's weekend when I get to analysis, but I did want to touch upon his race suit, which is like white, like fully white with these like red splotches down the side. And like the highlighting on the suit is red rather than the full suit being red with like white highlights, like words and stuff and patterns in white, like it is on his Ferrari suit. And I mean, obviously this is an homage to the Monaco flag, but it also is paying respects to Jules, I believe, his godfather, Jules Bianchi, because he had like almost an identical suit when he raced. So it's very wholesome that he dedicated like his entire fit this weekend to his father and Jules. It's very Charles. I also loved, speaking of the suit, I loved that there was a clip of them all walking somewhere. And Max is like jogging a little to catch up to Charles, and he was like, hey, I like your suit. And Charles like, what? Oh, thanks. And Max just starts like commenting, like, I see the red, like that's cool. And I just love how much Max loves Charles. He just like wants to talk to him all the time. The way he is around Daniel and Charles is everything. I love it. Another quick thing on Charles is when they were doing the parade, he was getting interviewed. And like in the middle of the interview, we're talking, he paused and he's like, I'm sorry, I have to interrupt you. We're about to pass my friend's apartment. And if I don't wave at them, they'll make fun of me. And then he just like proceeds to just like look up and wave. I thought that was really cute. All right, lap 3. And that's what you missed in Monaco. Because, like, you know, that's what you missed on Glee. But Monaco, that might be too niche. Anyway, team announcements. Aston Martin is officially partnering with Honda in 2026. Which is very exciting. I love Honda. I'm so thrilled they'll be back on the grid. But what's super weird is that Max made a comment about it when he was asked about it. Obviously, he didn't just like give an unsolicited comment on things. He doesn't do that. But he said that the reason that Red Bull went to Ford was because Honda told him they were leaving F1. And so he was surprised and sad to see that they were teaming up with Aston Martin. Which I didn't know that, and that sounds kind of weird. I feel like there might be miscommunication there. I can't imagine that Honda was like, see ya, and then snuck over to Aston, unless Aston did the same thing that they did with Fernando and just offered them a buttload of money. Do they get paid for partnering, being like a technical partner? Anyway, what's cool about it though is that they're both like car manufacturers, so it's going to be like a double tech collaboration. Usually it's like non-auto partnering together, but here it's auto. So we'll see how that works. And I also want to see how frequently we'll be seeing Yuki sneak off to the Aston Martin hospitality to eat Japanese food. There are also rumors that Alfa Romeo will be joining Haas starting in 2024, so next year, which I don't believe is confirmed yet, but I think unofficially confirmed that the talks are happening. Like it hasn't been denied that they're talking about it. I don't know what that would look like, but it'd be cool to have Alfa Romeo stay on the grid. So be interesting to see what that looks like. McLaren ran a special livery this weekend to highlight their 60th anniversary, as well as the fact that they're a Triple Crown winner of motorsport. So that means they've won F1, the Indy 500, and Le Mans, which made the livery orange, white, and black. So Halloween. Following up on McLaren, though, Zach Brown did a podcast about where he was asked about, I guess, letting Daniel go. And he was saying that it was just like a really bad fit. Like they did everything they could to make it work. It was like they got to the point where their strategy was just hope, and that's not a good strategy to have. Which is all fine. Zach Brown is defending the wrong thing though, because I think we could all see that like partnership wasn't working. Something wasn't clicking there. I think everyone sees that. What people don't like, or I guess I'll speak for me personally, but I think it's a collective thing. What people don't like is that they treated Daniel like shit. Like the way they went about letting him go was shit. Daniel did not know. That's what sucks. Not you like feeling like you need to go in a different direction. That happens. It's fine. But handle it better, Zach, and stop defending the wrong thing. Also, just as a last FYI, it seems that a lot of teams have decided to bring their upgrades to Monaco, but given the nature of the track and the race, we won't actually be able to necessarily see, and the drivers won't necessarily be able to feel the results of that, and the teams won't really be able to gather data, but I don't think they waited to apply those upgrades until Spain. And one final thing about teams, apparently there is a water shortage in Monaco. So Red Bull, the like famous Red Bull pool that they all jump into after a win, they weren't allowed to fill it with water because apparently that would set the country over the edge. Do none of their pools have water? It's like, anyway. So instead of doing that, they filled the whole pool with white balls. So it looked like a McDonald's like play pit thing. And made everyone play in it, which I guess you could do more activities in it because people aren't getting wet, but like kind of weird. Going off of the Red Bull theme, one of my favorite videos I've ever seen, like of all time, was Daniel, Max, and Checo doing some marketing video, and they were asked to name their lookalikes. And Daniel pulls up a picture of Sid the Sloth from Ice Age and says it's Max, and Checo and Max are like doubled over in laughter. He does look like Sid the Sloth. No offense to Max. Sid's cute. I mean, it's better than what I used to say, which is that Max looks like a piece of melted Lego. I don't think that anymore. I think Max has really had a major glow up, and I don't think he looks like a sloth or like melted Lego anymore. I think he looks very nice and lovely. But when you put them side to side, there's some faces that Max pulls where he really does look like Sid the Sloth. Another thing that's become like a thing for some reason is for the last few weeks, Fernando's been pictured like sniffing flowers and plants like in the back of videos. Like in the media pen, someone was talking and he just like walked behind them, behind the camera, sniffed the flower, went, and then walked off. During a press conference, he just like, there weren't any flowers, so he was just sniffing the plant next to him. And then a couple of days ago, he posted a video to his TikTok of him watering all the flowers at the hospitality at Aston Martin. It like became a thing. I don't know why. And I wasn't able to find the clip, but I saw it somewhere and then I lost it. It was at, I think, the post-qualifying press conference today. He was asked about it. And he's like, I just love flowers. I just think they should be everywhere. The team's caught on now, so they're putting flowers everywhere. I have some in my room. And he's like, it's a shame there are no flowers in Monaco. And Max was like, I have a garden. You can come over. And Fernando's like, oh, let me see what I'm doing later. I just love that. Honestly, Daniel should have used Fernando in his Smell the Roses campaign. It's like there for the taking. How has he not done that? All right. So there was one major rumor this week that like really like sent people crazy. I got messages from people who I didn't even know followed F1 that were like thoughts. But basically a rumor started that, Ferrari is offering a $40 million contract to Lewis Hamilton. This is like an annoying rumor for several reasons. One, that would mean that they're getting rid of Carlos. By the way, everyone assumed they were getting rid of Carlos with that. Could have been Charles. Carlos hasn't been performing worse than Charles. They've been performing pretty equally. But anyway, that would mean that they're getting rid of Carlos. And it would mean that Lewis is leaving Mercedes, which I just do not think is happening at any point. And also, like, that's just like such a slap in the face to Carlos. Not just like from the team, but like from the media for even making something like that up. Like, Carlos is a good driver. He is performing on par, if not better at times, than Charles. Does he maybe not have the same potential to be a world champion as Charles? That's possible. Charles is still not world champion despite how much potential he may have. So I really think they're on equal footing. And I really think Ferrari still has the most like equally balanced team out of everyone. But the response to this rumor was very funny. Fernando was asked about it they love asking random people about this. And so when Fernando was asked what he thinks Lewis should do, Fernando was like, I have no idea. But he always said that he wins and loses with the team. So if he's losing right now, I think he should stay. And then Charles was asked about, Charles's question was, so there's been speculation in the media about your future partner at F1. What makes your ideal teammate? And Charles giggles and looks over at Lewis and goes, hello, Lewis. And everyone just laughs. But then, which, by the way, this next part no one showed. They only showed that clip of him going like, hello, Lewis. He said that obviously, like, I look for a fast teammate, but that's not me saying that my teammate isn't fast. He's very fast. Carlos is, like, an extremely fast driver. And also, I'm not the person making the decision, so why are you asking me? And then he was asked, would you like to see Lewis as your teammate? And he was like, I mean, I can't say yes because I just know that'll be the highlight, like the headline of every newspaper. But then he was like, but anyone would be happy to have Lewis as their teammate because they have so much to learn from him and he's like such an inspiration. But he was like, I am so happy where I am and I have such a great relationship with Carlos. There's like nothing for me to like entertain with this rumor. Why is everyone trying to break Carlos and Charles up? They're so good together. Leave them alone. Worry about Ferrari. Ferrari's the issue, not Carlos or Charles or Carlos and Charles. Just like, leave them alone. Also, George reshared the clip of that on Twitter and was like, leave my teammate alone. Yeah, George does not want to lose his teammate. But anyway, then they pivoted over to Lewis and were like, thoughts? And he was like, of course, Lewis turns to Charles and goes, thank you for the kind words. And then he turns to the media and goes, hello, everybody. And then he says, I'm currently in contract negotiations and there's always speculation, but until you hear from me, nothing is true. And then he was asked where he thinks the rumors come from. And he like straight up calls out the media in the room with him. And he's like, well, I'm pretty sure an individual in this room wrote that. And then he said that the media just got bored without the Imola Grand Prix and were like, we need to make stuff up. But he said his team is working behind the scenes with Toto to make things happen. And he's like very relieved that he's no longer involved in contract negotiations because that used to really stress him out. Now he can just focus on his job and his team can handle like figuring that out. But I just love that he called out the media like straight to their faces because he's like, this is dumb as shit. Like, why are you starting this? Also, isn't he making like 50 million with Mercedes? Why would he settle for 40 million? Maybe I'm confusing pounds, euros, dollars, or something, but that seems like, why would they offer him less? Do they think name recognition is that important to Lewis? Anyway, let's move on to celebrities. So Seb is back, baby! I was so thrilled to see his scraggly head walk through the paddock gates. He was wearing like all white, looking very beachy and chill and calm. His hair is still a mess and he's still wearing that like thin headband around it that's doing absolutely nothing for anything. It's not holding it back. It's not holding it in place. It's just on there for aesthetics, I guess. So I guess he still hasn't had time for a shower or to brush his hair since he retired. I don't know what he's been doing. Saving the bees. I don't know. It looked like he backpacked there. But there was a very cute picture of him like reuniting with all the Aston Martin engineers, and then there was a cute pic of him and Lewis hugging. It was very nice. Checo and Bad Bunny hung out, and for some reason this pairing is so hilarious to me. They did like a little video promo of Checo getting into Bad Bunny getting into Checo's car. And Checo's like, huh. And it's just they're so funny together. Checo's like such a dad in his like polos and his like Puma, and then there's Bad Bunny wearing the most out-of-pocket clothes next to him, and it just gets me every time. Kylie Minogue was there again. I swear she's just like a regular now. She's been like at 8 races so far. There hasn't even been 8 races. She's been at a few races. I think it's so funny that during her interview on the grid, she was like, I'm so unprepared for this. I wore heels and I had to borrow someone's sneakers who just gave their sneakers to Kylie Minogue off their feet. And why did Kylie take them? I really hope she knew this person and they had a spare pair of shoes and someone didn't just give them the shoes off their feet. But I did think it's funny. She's like carrying the heel. She's like, I didn't come prepared for this. I didn't realize how much walking there'd be. This is like your 3rd GP, girl. You should know by now. Bring extra pants. Bring extra shoes. Hopper from Stranger Things was there, whose real name is David Harbour. David Harbour was there. James Marsden, aka Roger Federer, JK was actually James, was also there, and I guess he's just a season regular now. I wonder if he was planning to be in Imola and got detracted, or if he's just going to the big ones. Like, is his next one going to be, like, Vegas? Maria Sharapova was there. Catherine Zeta-Jones and Michael Douglas, I assume guest Sebastian, were also there. They really had quite the trip. They went from Italy for the wedding, where I know they were, to Cannes Music... Why do I keep saying Cannes Music Festival? Cannes Film Festival. And then they hopped on over to the Monaco Grand Prix. And I think a lot of actually people from Cannes came over to the Grand Prix because it's so close. Tom Holland was there. He hung out with Neymar at Red Bull. He's still a giant Lewis fan though. No Zendaya, but he did hang out with Lando, and I think Tom's lost some weight. His face is more chiseled and has less of the baby face that he used to have, so he doesn't look as much like Lando as he used to. Orlando Bloom was there. Legolas, what? I'm obsessed that like Martin like goes up and does his usual spiel where he tries to get people to talk to him, but Orlando's like already has his arms outstretched ready to like hug Brundle and be like, I was told to talk to you. And Orlando immediately launches into his spiel to promote his new film called Gran Turismo or something like that. It is like racing related, so fair enough, like it was a plug that made sense, but he had like a whole thing. And then Martin goes, well, you got your promo in, so why are you here, basically? And it was just kind of rude. So Orlando starts talking about how much he loves F1. He's like, there's a science and excellence and teamwork behind this, which I loved. He's also had a great suit on. Anyway, Martin loses interest so quickly and just like walks off from everybody he interviews, which like everyone gets mad on his behalf when celebrities are rude to him, but he's not like that polite to people either. There was a really bizarre moment where I guess he was trying to get over to the Red Bull area on the grid, and this like giant Red Bull guy was like blocking his way, like fully like body blocking him, and he was like, you can't go in here, I'm gonna get fucking shit here, dude, is what I heard. Everyone's really mad at this guy when it sounded like he was like, I can't let you in here. Like he swore on national television, but like international television, but he still like, he was like talking about his own job. He wasn't swearing like at Martin. And then he like steps aside and Christian's behind him, and Christian is so small, I had no idea there was anyone even behind this man. And he agrees to talk to Martin, but Martin's kind of rude to him too. Christian doesn't look like he's enjoying this conversation. It's all sort of bizarre. I don't know why everyone's coming after this Red Bull guy. I think Martin was no less rude than him. I mean, he didn't swear at him, but that guy didn't sound like he was swearing at him. Maybe I misunderstood the situation because everyone's up in arms about it. But it was very weird. And it looked like Martin was ready to like fight this giant man who was like the size of like 12 Christian Horners. Anyway, the last celeb I want to talk about is the Prince of Monaco was there, and his wife, the princess. Also, this is a random fun fact, but I think the Prince of Monaco pays more for his orchestra than for his military. I guess Monaco needs that more. Lap 4, after parties. So I only saw like a couple of clips. I saw Charles and his girlfriend rock up. Charles wearing like a gray sweatshirt and glasses, looking like he's going to bed and not to a club. And they were talking to some people. I saw them get out of the car. I saw him talking to Noah Schnaps. There's another video of him like greeting his brother, and Noah Schnaps just like lurking in the background. Okay, and I need to say this, like I know I'm gonna get shit for it, but Noah Schnaps does not look like Charles. I will die on this hill. They look nothing alike. Not even when Charles was younger. That was a very, I mean, maybe Noah could play younger Charles, but there is a strict cutoff at which point Noah Schnaps is not qualified to play Charles. Not because of anything like against Noah. They just have completely different faces. They look nothing alike at all. I also saw Max and Kelly arrive to the after party. They all drove to this after party, but isn't Monaco walkable? And surely they should walk? Because aren't they going to drink at this after party? Also, Noah Schnaps DJ'd the after party along with one of those D'Amelio sisters. Why? Anyway, lap 5, paddock fits. I am starting off strong with one of my favorite looks of the weekend. George in his weird towel thing that he posted on his Instagram. He's like on a beach in Monaco, I guess. And he's wearing like a dark blue towel dress with like a hoodie and like the little pocket that like little kids wear when they go to the beach. And he captioned it "Evening Dip." And I think the most hilarious comment and the most appropriate way to describe this was Puma Sports commenting on his post with like a correction saying "evening drip." Whoa. That would have been such a good, by the way, caption if he had written that. Because like drip, because he's dripping because he's wet, and then dripping because drip. You know, Puma won with that. And there's no other way to describe this outfit. I love it. It's so lame. It's hilarious. It's so George. I just love all of it. Also, as I'm talking about George, I want to shout out Carmen, his girlfriend, who continues to win with just being able to like create an aesthetic that like has a consistent vibe to it. Her look is very like Sophia Richie, expensive, preppy, but effortless sort of vibe, you know? And she does it flawlessly. And when she takes over and has George match the vibe, so good. I also want to quickly shout out Lando. He had a whole like white outfit thing going on. There was like this bomber jacket that was a cool piece. And he had this really cool like short sleeved knitted button down, which looked great. Not necessarily together, but they were both really cool pieces. And that shirt is so cool for Monaco. Guan Yu slayed. And not like slayed in my usual like, he's cool, so anything he wears works kind of way. He actually had an impeccable outfit. Like, in Louis fashion, it was straight from the Dior runway, but the difference is that each piece was from a different look on the runway, so he had put the whole thing together himself. Which actually reminds me of an interview that I saw with Tom Ford, where he was asked if it annoys him when he sees people wearing his pieces in a certain way. And he says it never annoys him how people style his clothes, but what annoys him is when people just like copy and paste his looks off the runway, without adding like a spin or their own personality to it. So I really think he'd appreciate what Guan Yu can do. So he was wearing this like black Dior muscle tank with like a colorful pattern on the front. And it was tucked into these black trousers with like a half sheer skirt around the back. And he was wearing these like white lace up boots. And it was just so cool. Massive slay. I really want to know if Guan Yu has a stylist, because I really don't think he does. I think like he just has natural instincts on how to style and how to look good. Like, there's people who can execute and there's people who can put a look together. And when you have both together, like Timmy Chalamet, has anyone ever said his name like that? Like Timothy Chalamet, like it's a whole nother level. Okay, so this entire weekend, I think, was also one of my favorite Louis outfit weekends because they were relatively weather appropriate. Although, also probably important to note that Monaco is actually a lot cooler than a lot of the places they've been recently, so it's not that impressive. It's more like when he's in 95 degrees schwitzing like a maniac because he's wearing like a sweater and like the thickest pants alive that like but great collection of outfits this entire weekend. He had like a great light yellow set, and like one of my favorite outfits was this like Louis Vuitton white set that was like all baggy and cool and kind of like it was all lace and had some like floral embroidery around it. It looked really great and very light. It looked very, very easy to wear in the sun. The most amusing outfit that he wore was this Dries Van Noten fit that was not quite a matching set, but it was the exact outfit copied from the runway, minus one of the jackets. So it's like these cool, like khaki printed they're khaki cargo pants, but they have like a cool print on them that's like very Dries Van Noten. And the top is this long sleeved knitted, but like a very thin knit pink top with like a red pattern on it down the sleeves and like a big red 23 on the front of it. And I love this outfit because Alex Albin reshared it and wrote, "Thanks for the support, Louis." Didn't see a public response from Louis, but I was highly entertained. Anyway, that concludes our digital warm-up. On to the race rhyme. But it's the Monaco Grand Prix. I never miss the Monaco Grand Prix. Neither do the celebs, the yacht owners, or like the general bourgeoisie. Monaco is like out of water or something, so the Red Bull pool is filled with balls. And Danny said Max looks like Sid. The sloth. The accuracy. The gall. Also, Charles is repping Monaco, his dad, and Jules with pride. He hung out with Prince Albert. And he played football. Or like, tried. Let's pretend for just a moment that the curse of the Monegasque prince isn't real, and revel in the loveliness that is Charles Leclerc before Ferrari screws him with bad strategy and a mediocre automobile. Anyways, on to quali, and Charles's Ferrari doesn't quite have enough pace. In addition to a penalty, Fernando pushed like an animal, and Max scored first place. Little side note, the cars lifted by cranes were breaking free, and with the bottoms up, they're soaring, flying. There's not a team in Monaco that didn't see. On Sunday, when the lights go out and away they go, ain't no one messing with Verstappen's flow. But way in the back, Hulkenberg hulked, earning a 5, then 10-second penalty as a result. And Carlos bumps Ocon after getting told to push ASAP. So I guess Ferrari was like, wow, can't trust us to make a decision. So indecisively told Carlos to box, JK, like 4 times, no cap. Also, we learned today that no one on the pit walls should be a meteorologist. No one can read a weather radar, and McLaren just made up labels for the fun of it. When the rain finally comes, unsure if it was class 1 or class 2, everyone lost their shiz and all hell broke loose. Aston was like, Fernando, pit for mediums. That's exactly what we should do. 2 seconds later, Fernando was like, nope, mediums are not the move. But then Max had pitted and won't be seen again until the checkered flag. But no worries, there's still plenty of drama to be had. George gets a 5-second penalty for an unsafe restart, but he's unfazed. For George has never met a lemon that he won't try and turn into lemonade. 3 times he tries to convince the team to let him ahead of Lewis. He could give the place back later. Maybe he could get Ocon. But his team is like, nice try, Georgie. We're not going to let you do this. Elsewhere, poor Yuki is trying his best with faulty brakes. He's all like, are you trying to make me crash? When his team is like, you're being chased. Lucky for McLaren, their car is like an inner tube on this track, sliding faster than they have all year right into the points. Like, take that. And finally, and most importantly, ESTIE Bestie's on the podium, baby! Lauren Rossi can chill, and Otmar can breathe easier. Maybe? Thanks to Max, we all get to listen to the Dutch national anthem yet again. But Fernando's P2 means that the winless streak is almost at an end. Next week is Barcelona and a fresh chance for some champagne. Fingers crossed for Fernando and Carlos. Long live the King of Spain. Okay, on to analysis. So first up is quali. The biggest thing to happen in Q1 is that Checo crashed, causing a red flag to the session, and there was nothing that could be done. The car is destroyed. His session is over. He will be starting P20. Adrian Newey and Christian Horner both look highly displeased. Checo is obviously not happy about this either. But the funniest part about this entire thing was that the car was literally craned off track. Don't know why the session's red flag. But it gave everyone a bird's eye view of the floor of the car, which I guess is every team's worst nightmare. So I guess kudos to the team that is able to recreate that floor from a blurry, like, broadcast video, but everyone's concerned about it. The same thing funnily happened during practice when Lewis Hamilton's car had to be taken off track, and it was also craned away, but I don't think that anyone's rushing to copy the Mercedes floor anytime soon. In Q2, Lando did a big whack into the wall. He was able to make it back into the pit lane, but there was quite a bit of damage to the car. Regardless, miraculously, the McLaren team rushed to fix the car, and he made it into Q3. Like, he had already made it into Q3, but he could actually drive in Q3. Big moment in Q3 is that Yuki made it in, and it's his first Q3 in Monaco, so that was very exciting. Also, another funny radio moment in Q3 is that Fernando went on and was like, I'm pushing like an animal, and his engineer just goes, I can see that. My favorite part about Fernando's interactions with his engineers is that they always sound so entertained by Fernando. Like, they clearly love working with him. Of course, nothing has really gone bad for them yet, and that could easily change, but at the moment, they all seem so happy together. Ocon also is having an insane qualifying, like, to the point where people actually thought that he might get pole. He didn't. Charles did get provisional pole with like a minute left. Monaco goes insane, like the entire country. But then Alonso took provisional pole, and Aston Martin goes insane. And then annoyingly, Max took pole by like 8/100ths of a second. This is his first pole in Monaco. He's gonna run out of new things to like set, but it's funny, Max gets on the radio and he's just like, oh, I hit the wall. And his engineer's like, you got pole. And he's like, yeah, but I hit the wall. He's so focused on things that go wrong sometimes. I do feel so bad for Charles, though. Like, not entirely unexpected given his luck in Monaco, but also so close. Also, what I love about Fernando is that he is congratulating Max before Max is even out of his own car. Like, he just, like, can't help but stand Max. Like, he wants to win, but he knows that, like, Max is so good. He just, as a fan of the sport, he can't help it. So by the end of the qualifying session, it's basically Max in first, Fernando in second, and Charles in third. Until like an hour later, after qualifying, the stews give Charles a three grid penalty for like slowing down in the tunnel or something and impeding Lando's race, which means he will start in P6. I hope Lando feels bad. I hope the stews feel bad. I hope everyone feels bad. But actually, really, I think Ferrari should feel bad because apparently Charles got some information late, which caused the whole situation in the tunnel. Anyway, it's Ferrari's fault. It's always Ferrari's fault. But the tweets about the situation were very amusing. F1 tweeted a video of the situation and wrote a closer look at the incident between Norris and Leclerc in the tunnel. And Lando replied to the tweet with a meme of Charles going, "Nothing, just an incident," from that video way back when. And then Charles tweeted a separate gif of a little boy like crying into a mic going, "I'm fine." And Lando replied with a little heart. No one wants your heart, Lando. We want your position. But I do appreciate his banter sometimes. It's really good. So the starting grid for the Grand Prix is as follows. Max in first, Fernando in second, followed by Esteban, Carlos, Lewis, Charles, Gasly, George, Yuki, Lando, Oscar, Nick, Alex Albon, Lance, Valtteri, Logan, Kevin, Nico, Guan Yu, and Checo. Sad Checo. Okay, on to the race. Honestly, I feel like the way we can look at this race is BR and AR. So before rain, after rain. Because before the rain, there was like stuff happening, but it was kind of meh. And then after rain, there was so much going on, but also like nothing going on at the same time. Like if you look at my race notes, there are so many half-finished bullets because something new kept happening and I was trying to keep up and failing. So anyways, let's chat about the race, both BR and AR. First up, BR, before rain. So the start up at the front was relatively unexciting. George was noted for an incorrect start position, but Stu decided that no investigation was necessary. Max was on mediums, and given that it's a softer tire, he was able to get away faster and without compromising his position. And Fernando's main focus was to keep Ocon behind him, which he did, and everything proceeded as it started. But towards the back of the grid, things were starting to get spicy. At the Mirabeau turn, the like famous U-turn thing, you know, that is famous in Monaco, where it's like around that little bend that was also in Phineas and Ferb. But Nico attempted like some wild move past Logan, which really pissed Logan off. I think they hit each other. He like yelled about it on the radio, but basically Nico ended up locking up and braking, and he ended up having contact with Lance, which caused damage to Lance's car and forced him to lose like 4 places. Nico, on the other hand, gained 4 places, but I don't know if it was worth it. He had to come in and pit for hards, and it was like he was so antsy to try and leave that he like tried to leave before the pit stop was done and that all the wheels were on, which was really bizarre, and all like the whole antsiness was completely pointless because he came out P20. And he ended up getting a 5-second penalty for this. And later on, he got a 10-second penalty because he didn't serve the 5-second penalty correctly. Although I'm with the commentators on this that I didn't actually see him attempt to serve a 5-second penalty unless he really thought like pausing and going was serving the penalty. But like I don't remember him actually attempting to serve the penalty, which means they would just have to subtract 5 seconds off him. But I guess he did attempt it, which is why they gave him another penalty. Okay, so Nico wasn't the only one being a bit cray-cray because not too long after that, Carlos got into a whole situation that I like really want to get into because there's certainly some blame to place with Carlos, but it's definitely not all his fault, and I think that is important to point out. So Carlos basically gets told on the radio to push ASAP because they want him to get past Ocon, I guess, so he did. And I guess he took that a bit too seriously and attempts an overtake when he really shouldn't have and ends up clipping Ocon and causes damage to part of Carlos's front end plate. Weirdly, we were all expecting a black and orange flag to wave indicating that the FIA is forcing Carlos to pit, but it never came, which means that the FIA must have deemed that Carlos's car was stable enough to not be a danger to him or the rest of the grid. But there was one moment when Fernando went on the radio and kept asking if he had a puncture, like right after this incident. He was reassured like multiple times there was nothing wrong. But it was odd that it happened like right after this. And I wonder what it is he felt. But anyway, the other curious thing about this is that Ferrari didn't box Carlos. Not that they didn't ask him to box. They did, like 4 times. Like lap 12, I think it was lap 17, lap 22, and lap 28. I think at one point a Ferrari mechanic literally closed his visor so that he could laugh because they had to go out and come back in every time they told him to box. He finally did box in lap 34, but because this pit stop ended up happening after Ocon stopped, Carlos ended up coming out between Ocon and Hamilton, and he was pissed off. He like literally goes on the radio, swears, and goes, "This is exactly what I talked about, exactly." And his engineer goes, "You're ahead of Hamilton by 1.4 seconds, and the goal was to cover Hamilton." And Carlos goes, "I don't care about Hamilton, I was fucking quick." And then immediately checks what's Charles's pace, and when he finds out it was 17.5, he goes, I was 16.5. Honestly, after the race, Carlos asked everyone to not judge him for his comments on the radio as he's going 300 kph, like in Monaco, which is extra stressful. But like, I am going to judge him because I think his radio was completely warranted. Like, how annoying is it to be told to box, not box, box, not box, box, not box, and then box at the worst time? That's so annoying. Like, we've seen Ferrari do this with Charles before when they tell him to pit and then they just change their mind. Like, except in that case, it was too late when that came through. But in this case, they just kept going, box, don't box, box, don't box. Both are just examples of like the same miscommunication, but we see them miscommunicate in various ways all the time. They're very versatile when it comes to miscommunicating. Yesterday, when they gave Charles delayed information, which caused Charles to get a grid penalty, another example. And like, I know Fred Vasseur was supposed to come and shake things up, but I think it just goes to show that the problem is not necessarily at the head. Like, the entire pit wall makes decisions, and specifically, the engineers communicating those decisions to the drivers are doing a terrible job at it because they can't even communicate a bad strategy well. Anyways, too long, didn't read. Carlos shouldn't have to apologize because he wasn't wrong to get mad at them. Despite what mistakes he may have made, they were wrong. Also, this isn't an incident, but I did want to do a little update about the front of the grid. In the first half of the race, before the rain, we were sort of existing in this like potential battle, like an anticipation of a potential battle between Max and Fernando, because Max was on hards and was just going faster and faster, and Max's mediums were wearing, and so Max was in like tire management mode. And it was a problem because there wasn't enough of a gap between them for Max to pit and come out leading the race. And I don't know if they had enough faith that he would have more pace than Fernando at this particular race. / you can't really overtake in Monaco, so that's like a huge risk. But the gap was closing super quickly, so like right up until the rain, there was a 7-second gap between the two of them, which, let's be honest, is like milliseconds for Max this season. Like, he usually has like a good 20 seconds between him and the next non-Red Bull car, or even the next Red Bull car. Anyways, so to me, the funniest thing in F1 is the anticipation of rain, because it just like highlights how not a single person on any pit wall at all is qualified to be a weather person or a meteorologist or whatever it's called. They're just not. They always like zoom in on the radars on the screen, and I don't think it means a thing to any of them. Like, every team is just reporting something random. Fernando gets told the rain is 45 minutes away. Someone else gets, oh, it's nearby, but not heading this way. McLaren just keeps going class 1 rain, 20 minutes, class 2 rain. Not only can they not tell the weather, they also don't know how to report it. No one knows what class 1 and class 2 means. And then, like, when it's about to come, the radios just start blowing up and engineers are going, it's about to blow. But not all the drivers know. They're like, okay, it's about to blow, but like the rain hits at different points in the track, so only when they get to that point, they're like, oh yeah, it's raining. I also thought it was funny that during this particular race, George was the first person to complain about the rain, which may just mean he was the first on the broadcast, but it's so very British and so George to complain about the rain that I'm just going to pretend that it's canon and that it was indeed him who complained first about the rain. All right, after rain, AR. As it happens, so there were so many little things that happened as the rain started to pour that I'm just gonna like list them off. So first, Max gets on the radio and tells his engineers that it's raining, and his engineers are like, let us know if you need to box. And I feel like at this point, Max was like, someone just tell me to box. I want to box. But he's never going to say, I need to box. So he just keeps going. Lance and Valtteri are the first drivers to go on the intermediates. They're the guinea pigs. And at this point, there are only 2 spots on the track that would require wets. So everyone is sort of cautious about a full-on change, but still aware that that might happen in the next couple of laps. And we see that because Max almost has an incident and gets back on the radio to say he has to drive super carefully because his tires are so bad. And his engineer is like, there are literally 2 spots that you need to survive through, and then you're fine. Again, Max is just dying for someone to let him box. He needs someone to say, you can box now. Fernando pits and opts for mediums. So everyone is shocked by this choice because it's raining, but there are 2 things to note here. One, the moment that decision was made, the track wasn't bad enough to be like, yes, for sure, intermediates. They had Lance out there on intermediates and clearly weren't too impressed with his pace, so it was like a gamble to be like, well, maybe the track will stay like this. So it's not a total out-of-pocket strategy from Aston Martin to bet on the drier side. But also, number 2, I think we have to acknowledge that Fernando did question the engineers when he came in and was like, are you sure we shouldn't be going on intermediates? And they're like, yeah. I mean, he just asked the question, but Nando knows all. So then Ocon, Lewis, and George pit for intermediates. Meanwhile, Max has hit the barriers, but he's able to keep on going, which I think is what causes like the flag thing to like look like it's glitching, because it just goes yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green. And at that point, Carlos loses a place to Charles. Then Max gets told that Fernando was put on mediums, and Max goes, no way, we need intermediates. We need them right now. And his engineers go, we know. And then Max pits for intermediates. Finally. I don't think that man has ever been more relieved to box in his life. And then right after that, Alonso is also back in the pits to switch to intermediates. It seems, though, that this double pit stop really screwed him over, and like the delay to switch to wet tires, that might have been his downfall. There is a chance that he could have gotten first this race. Not for sure, because Max is Max. But there was a world where that could have happened. We just won't know. Then Ferrari decides to double stack a pit stop, which I think everyone watched with bated breath, and no one expected to be executed correctly at all. But I suppose even a broken clock is right twice a day. So Carlos pulls in after Charles and has to wait like half a second lined up behind him, and then he pits, and then they're both off. Not that executing a double stack is a reflection on the quality of the Ferrari team, because the strategy is still shit. So is the communications. I really just think if it reflects upon anything, I think it's that the pit crew got all warmed up running in and out, preparing for false pit stops, and they were just ready to do something. Since Fernando switched to intermediates, by the way, there was like a lot of depressing talk about how he's falling behind Max drastically and Ocon is gaining on him drastically. But I think once he was able to get his bearings, tires warmed up, whatever, it was fine. Like he started doing well again. He obviously was in no position to even attempt to contest Max's lead. Although the graphic on the TV did show battle for first, even though Max was 18 seconds ahead. So it really was not a battle for first, but he was a very comfortable second. Also, at this point, Kevin Magnussen remained the only person to have not switched to any sort of wet tire, which the commentators described in yet another bizarre metaphor that they love to throw out randomly. He has all the grip and control of a shopping cart. If he's going to be shopping like that, he's going to be knocking over a lot of cans of beans. Indeed. This is probably a good transition to our 2 DNFs of the day. So Kevin Magnussen ends up in the barriers while he's still on dry tires, which is like, no duh. It's raining. He wrecks his front wing in the process, but the team didn't realize until he actually came into the pit and was in the middle of his tire change. And they noticed and they're like, oh crap. And then like rush over to try to find his front wing and attach it so he can go back out. Weirdly enough, Kevin also was the only driver to go on full wets while everyone else was on intermediates. And he ends up crashing anyway in the emergency lane. He was able to reverse out of that and rejoin the race. But sadly for him, he ended up DNFing with 3 laps left in the race due to a technical issue, I believe. Although, with all the scrapes he's been through, I'm like not surprised that his car was functioning at this point. Lance is the other driver to DNF, though he did so a few laps before Kevin did. It almost felt like Lance had just like one bang up too many, because in addition to his first issue with Nico, he later had some contact with Kevin and subsequent damage when he tried and failed to overtake him. Then he also ended up down the emergency lane when Kevin was there. And then finally he had contact at the hairpin turn, and that was it for poor baby Lance. What a day for him. That's like 4 incidents in one race. That car was just like over it. They're like, I'm not doing this anymore. It just died. The little engine that could not. Okay, so George is the other point that I want to hit on. He had a major incident during this whole rain drama. He was noted by Stu for an unsafe return from the pit lane, which we do end up seeing in a replay. And basically, because he exited unsafely and was still driving slowly or whatever, Checo basically ran right into him. I honestly don't know how they were both able to continue, but I guess it's because they were both really slow. Like, George looked completely still on track, and Checo was not going particularly fast. I guess he was also exiting the pit lane, so neither of them were speeding, but they did end up... Checo looked like he hit him pretty hard. But my favorite theory about this is that that this situation was Max making good on his promise to George to expect the same thing next time after their altercation in Baku, and sent Checo after George like some F1 hitman. Not like Checo had anything better to do this race. He could easily hitman all he wanted. I think it's an excellent theory that's clearly false, but I think it's funny, so let's pretend. Anyway, Stu ended up awarding George a 5-second penalty for this, which triggered the most hilarious series of radio messages from George. By the way, I love his ambitiously eager yet always polite way of communicating on the radio to try to sneak team orders in his favor. I could easily see Cousin Greg from Succession playing him in an F1 movie. I think Nicholas Braun could really bring a certain energy that would bring Georgie to life on the big screen. Anyways, so when the penalty came through, George was sort of freaking out on the radio about the whole situation, to the point where Toto got on. He was like, Georgie, it's all cool. He didn't say Georgie. George, it's all cool. All cool. But I guess George decided to reinterpret that message as an encouragement to take fate into his own hands, because he was like, for the rest of the race, his messages were just like, if Leclerc gets close, could we potentially invert positions? And I don't go more than 5 seconds ahead of Lewis if he obviously doesn't get Esteban. No obligation. That was his first message, to which his engineers were like, let's see. And then a few laps later, he gets back on and goes, so can I have a go at Ocon? Or is Lewis catching up? Progressively getting less polite. And then the last one was just, I'm just stuck right up Lewis's gearbox here. Needless to say, the answer was basically, no, sir, you cannot, for no reason, go ahead of Lewis. You are clearly not faster than him. And also, you have more than a 5-second advantage to Charles, so you're not going to lose position to him. So chill. All right, moving on to other radios. Yuki, poor Yuki. Okay, so after his heroic efforts in Imola, and after being the #1 guy at AlphaTauri this entire season, that's a low-key reference to Vanderpump Rules in case you didn't catch it. His insane performance at quali the day before, where he got into Q3 for the first time in Monaco, qualified 9th, the car just like won't let him live. He was having major brake issues and like Lando was closing in on him. So his engineer got on the radio and was like, try getting some pace, especially on the brakes. And Yuki goes, but these brakes suck. And the engineer goes, well, just like do this and this and this. I know you can do it. You got this. And Yuki goes, are you trying to make me crash out? His brakes were so bad though that he ended up like conceding to both McLarens. And then the brake sent him down the emergency lane before like forcing him to reverse out and like rejoin the race and basically end up losing him the P10, P11 streak he had going on. Poor Yuki. His time will come. I know it. I just want to believe it so badly that his time is soon. But like, this was sad. The car needs to be better. They need to fix the car. Okay, so a couple of other things to highlight. McLaren. Not much to say about McLaren other than like a P9 and P10 finish was superb for them. And I almost feel like if these rainy conditions had been around at quali and like the entire race today, we would be seeing a very different result for them. They like thrived in these conditions. And I don't know if it's a fluke or a sign of what's to come, but happy for them. Not happy for Zach Brown. Happy for the rest of them. Also, Charles. Like, what is there to say about Charles? He started 6th, even though he qualified 3rd. He finished 6th. So I suppose the biggest takeaway from today for Charles is that A, he finished the race. B, he finished where he started. C, he had nowhere near the struggles and miscommunication issues that Carlos had during this race. So, uneventful race, points. Basically, this is a massive win for Charles in Monaco, I guess. So, yay. But not bad things happening doesn't make this a good thing, just saying. Logan also had a bad day. Sorry, I just finished Succession, and so every time I say Logan, I am visualizing Logan Roy, and is not who we're talking about. I'm just imagining Logan in this little car. Anyway, not only was Logan like seriously angry at Nico after their incident and the damage that it caused, he also just like, he was having such a bad day. He like lost several spots in a row. First to Kevin, then to Stroll, then to Checo, then to Nico, and then to Guan Yu. It was tragic. He also like ran out of tires, so he was forced to use softs. Also tragic, and I guess a good lesson in tire maintenance. And he was also then given a 5-second penalty for speeding in the pit lane, but it was raining. I feel like the rules should be different, although it's more dangerous when you speed in the pit lane when it's wet. It's also harder to control. Don't know what the solution there is. Anyway, before we finish and go into results and everything, I wanted to quickly recap all of the Stu's rulings because there were many notes they made during the race. Like that little box at the top was just ever present. So first there was the incorrect starting position for George, which was dropped. Then there was the black and white warning flag for Carlos for racing integrity or something. I don't know why he got it. Then there was a 5-second penalty to Nico for causing the first incident. Then there was a €100 fine given to Alex Albon for speeding in the pit lane. Well, I don't know why he got a fine instead of a penalty. Then there was the 10-second penalty to Nico for failing to serve his first penalty correctly. Then there was another 5-second penalty to Logan Sargent for speeding in the pit lane. Then there was a 5-second penalty to George for unsafe return to the track. Both Fernando and Kevin got black and white flags for track limits. And not to mention, every time there was like a yellow flag, it seemed to like spaz out between like yellow, green, yellow, green, yellow, green. Anyways, busy day for the Stews, though I must say I'm very proud of them for not waiting to decide an issue like a decade after the race was over and just like making rulings in the moment. Way to go. You can't just like circle back on those things. It's not like a regular job. You can't be like, I'll circle back in 3 to 5 business days. You have to do it in the moment. Anyway, one other thing I wanted to know is that it seems kind of odd that the only people who really seem to have a good relationship with their engineers at the moment are Max and Fernando. Like, yeah, Fernando asked a few questions back, but it was more of a conversation than like mistrust. But otherwise they like get along great. They're like having full on like random conversations on the radio, like that are not even related to the race. Like they're having a great time. And maybe I'm not hearing enough of the radios. But from what I do hear, like Carlos has massive trust issues. Besides like what we heard, like at some point after the race, he got on the radio and was like, what's the forecast? And they were like, rain for 5 more minutes. And he's like, only 5? I need more information than that. And the engineer was basically like, that's all we got. Bye. Like, he doesn't even trust their forecast, which, to be fair, I wouldn't either. I wouldn't trust anyone's forecast, but I also wouldn't trust anything Ferrari said to me ever. So no surprise he has trust issues, but it's sad. Also, Toto needing to intervene with George and his engineer. Like, George had to get a calm down from Toto to, like, get over it. And Toto said in an interview later that he, like, sometimes intervenes because the engineer is busy doing other stuff. But, like, George was clearly not happy with the answer he was getting from his engineer. But anyways, I just thought it was interesting because, like, I always think Max's engineer hates him. Like, the way he sounds makes it sound like he hates everything that's happening to him at the moment. But they actually do have a great relationship, and they both trust each other to do their job completely and correctly. And I guess it's important to note that the teams with the best engineer-driver relationships are the ones that are thriving. So it's important. Ferrari, take note. Okay, so moving on to after the race. Oh, it was Tom Holland that waved the checkered flag quite aggressively, I might add. Just putting those Avenger muscles to use. During the post-race interviews, though, so there was like, you always see like the little fence, but I guess they didn't have a fence. So they had like a human barrier of Monaco people in like red suits, like holding hands and blocking anyone from going forwards or backwards between the drivers doing the interviews and the teams and the photographers behind them. Super weird. Also, during Max's interview, I like suddenly hear all this shouting and I'm like, what the fuck? What the fuck is going on? I thought he was being booed again, but then I realized that Esteban was just a little late to like greet his team, and so you can see him jumping on his team in the background of Max's interview, and they're all like cheering and whooping. It was very cute. Speaking of Esteban, he gets to the mic to do his post-race interview and just goes, ESTIE BESTIE on the podium, baby! Which is just so keen and wholesome in like the best way possible. And it's just so Esteban's vibe. And it's like the energy he brings to every situation. And I just love how wholesome and consistently cute he is about everything. I love that he's embracing the ESTIE BESTIE nickname because it's cute and endearing. But for the love of God, if and when Pierre gets a podium, please don't have him shout, tripod on the podium, baby. She might. Anyway, speaking of tripod, hilarious scene after the, when they all line up together, when someone gets a podium with the whole team and then they run and like do the champagne thing. Obviously Pierre had to be in the photo for that. And he looked like he wanted to be literally anywhere else. He could barely crack a smile. Why does he hate him so much? And he just like, instead of like running off with the champagne like they do, he literally just walked away. But speaking of people who are actually happy for him though, I'm sure he is. Okay, whatever. I'm not gonna attempt to fake that. Speaking of people who are actually happy for Esteban, when he finished his post-race interview and he like came over to Fernando and Max where they were standing, they were so happy for him. And Fernando was like hugging him and it was so wholesome. And I'm glad they still have that relationship and that it wasn't like ruined by him leaving Alpine. But also I can't believe that Monaco, for all their money, can't spare a single room to serve as a cool down room. Do they have like a room shortage as well as water shortage? They like literally are like huddled in like a corner on the street, like drinking water and wiping down, like trying to debrief, but it's like not a great debrief. And then some man just comes up to them and he's like, hello, listen to me. You will accept your awards. 3, 2, 1. Okay, congratulations. Bye-bye. Isn't that how it always is? But actually it isn't, because when they get to the podium, and by the way, on the way to the podium, Esteban, in like his eagerness, knocks over a champagne bottle that starts popping before it's ready. they get to the podium, they get the trophies for some reason before the national anthems, and they also get it 1, 2, 3, which is the opposite of what the guy said. What was the point of that? Anyway, another weird thing that happened on this podium was that they all posed for a picture together at the end, but for some reason they all stayed on their respective podium spots, except for the Red Bull engineering representative who hopped onto Fernando's podium spot, and they're like hugging while Max and Esteban are just standing solo. It's very weird. Anyway, on to results. So the driver of the day, officially it's ESTIE BESTIE, baby. I think several drivers deserved a shout out today. Max and Fernando both were just beasts on track. All of the drivers, honestly, it was such a mental fortitude to get through this race and in these conditions. I think a lot of them deserve a shout out for doing as well as they did. And not causing too much drama on track. Okay, so dick in the box. For me, besides the Monaco witch, which is an obvious dick, because she's not only cursing Charles now, she's also cursing Arthur. That's not nice. It's got to be Ferrari strategists for Carlos. I know Carlos didn't make his fair share of mistakes today, but I mean, they told him he could push. Carlos pushed. Then they told him to box. Don't box. Don't. The communication is terrible. The car is below average. Nothing is going right at Ferrari. Fred Vasseur was supposed to turn things around. I'd like to see that happening, please. Like, Carlos and Charles are too good to be wasted in this environment. They just are. And also screw the Monaco witch. All right, so the results of the race are Max in first, Fernando, Esteban, Lewis, George, Charles, Pierre, Carlos, Lando, Oscar, Valtteri, Nick DeVries, Joe, Albon, Yuki, Checo, Nico, Logan, and Kevin and Stroll both DNF'd. And in terms of standings, Max is way in the lead now with 144 points, followed by Checo with 105, followed by Fernando with 93, Lewis with 69, George with 50, Carlos 48, Charles 42, Lance 27, Esteban 21, and then it's all teens to 0 from there. Our rookies have yet to score still. And in the Constructors' Championship, Red Bull is miles ahead with 249 points, followed by Aston Martin with 120, Mercedes with 119, Ferrari with 90, Alpine with 35, McLaren with 17, Haas with 8, Alfa Romeo with 6, AlphaTauri with 2, and Williams with 1. Shout out Alex Albon and Yuki Tsunoda for being the only ones to score points for AlphaTauri and Williams. So that's it for the Monaco Grand Prix. Next up is Spain in just a few days, where I'll be making some sort of tapas situation, I think. If you have any Spanish recipe suggestions, hit me up. And make sure you subscribe, share with any potential boxes, and you can always DM or email me with your thoughts, recipes, opinions, questions, because I love hearing from all of you. And follow on BoxBox F1 Pod for every social. Well, actually just Instagram and TikTok to keep up in between races. Anyways, see you in Barcelona in just a few days. BoxBox.